My name is Claire. I was 29 when my entire family turned against me in one single afternoon. Imagine this. You are grieving the loss of the one person who loved you without condition. You sit in a dark wood office, rain hitting the window. A lawyer is reading your grandmother's will. You expect sadness, maybe comfort. Instead, your father suddenly stands up and demands that you give away the very house your grandmother left you. That was my reality. The lawyer had just said the words that changed everything. To my granddaughter Claire, I leave my Victorian house on Maple Street and $75,000. The silence in that room was heavy, broken only by the sound of my own heartbeat. I felt tears sting my eyes. Not because of the money, not even because of the house, but because of how my grandmother described me, her constant companion, her support, her gift of time and love. Those words mattered more than anything written on paper. But the moment lasted only seconds. Amanda, my younger sister, snapped her head up from her phone, her face twisted with anger. "That's it," she spat. $10,000. That's nothing. The lawyer continued reading, but Amanda's outrage filled the room. My father's face turned red. He slammed his hand on the armrest and cut the lawyer off. There must be some mistake. Amanda has 3 children. Claire is single with a good job. This division makes no sense. The lawyer calmly replied that everything had been reviewed many times. My grandmother had been of sound mind. Her wishes were clear. But my father ignored him and turned to me. His eyes burned with expectation, the same look that had made me cave since I was a child. "Claire," he said in that low, commanding voice, "you need to do the right thing. Sign the house over to your sister. She needs it more than you." I froze. It felt unreal. We were supposed to be mourning Grandma, not fighting over her belongings like scavengers. Amanda leaned forward, her acrylic nails tapping on the table. "You already have an apartment. What do you need a 4-bedroom house for? I have 3 kids crammed into a 2-bedroom. You're being selfish." My mother's voice joined in, soft but sharp, the guilt-dripping tone she had perfected. "Honey, your sister has children to think about. They need a stable home. You know your grandmother would want that." I looked around the room. My aunt and cousin shifted uncomfortably. Troy, Amanda's boyfriend of 4 months, crossed his tattooed arms and glared at me like I was a monster. The lawyer cleared his throat. "This is not the time or place for arguments. The will is binding. If you have concerns, you can contest it in court." But my father waved him off. "We don't need courts. We're family. Claire knows what the right thing is." That line, "we're family," cut me like a knife. Because in our family, family always meant I had to give up. It meant I had to sacrifice so Amanda could fail and fail again without consequence. It meant I had to be silent. For a moment, I felt like a child again, trapped powerless. But then I remembered Grandma's eyes, the way she always looked at me like she truly saw me. Something inside whispered, "Don't let them erase her voice." The lawyer ended the meeting quickly, clearly uncomfortable with the storm brewing. As we filed out into the rain, my mother grabbed my arm. "Dinner on Friday," she said coldly. "We'll discuss the transfer details then." Transfer details, as if it were already decided. I stood in the parking lot, soaked, my jacket clinging to my skin. My family climbed into their cars, already plotting how to pressure me. Amanda's laughter echoed through the rain as she whined to Troy about how unfair life was. And I stood alone, clutching my purse, feeling the weight of betrayal heavier than the storm above me. This was the beginning of the fight of my life, not just for a house, but for the right to stand my ground. I need you to picture something with me. A quiet Sunday morning. The clock just struck 11. The kitchen smells like pot roast. Steam rises from a pot on the stove while sunlight filters through lace curtains. This was my sanctuary. For 10 full years every Sunday, I walked up the steps of my grandmother Eleanor's Victorian house and knocked on her door. She always opened it with a smile, as if my arrival made her world brighter. And in many ways, those Sundays were what kept me alive. When I started nursing school, I thought I would collapse under the weight of night shifts, exams, and endless hours in the hospital. But each Sunday at 11, everything paused. I would step into her kitchen, tie an apron around my waist, and we would cook together. Sometimes it was chicken and dumplings. Sometimes her famous pot roast that seemed to melt in your mouth. We would sit on the wraparound porch afterward, sipping sweet tea, talking about nothing and everything. During winter, we stayed by the fireplace. Wrapped in her handmade quilts, we read books together or watched old black and white movies. Her television was so old the knobs barely turned, but to me, it was perfect. Those Sundays were sacred. I never missed one unless I was too sick to stand. And even then, I called her to check in. She always said my voice over the phone was enough to warm her heart. My bond with her was unlike anything else in my family. Grandma wasn't just family, she was my confidant, my anchor. When the hospital shifts left me drained, she reminded me of who I was outside the chaos. She reminded me that my worth was not defined by grades, paychecks, or anyone else's expectations. It was defined by love, by presence, by showing up. My sister Amanda, she could barely remember to call on Christmas. That contrast was impossible to ignore. I kept giving, and Amanda kept disappearing. Yet somehow Amanda was still the golden child. When she maxed out a credit card, my parents paid it. When she wrecked her car while texting, they bought her a new one. When she quit yet another job, they covered her rent. And when she showed up hungover to my graduation, I was told to understand. Grandma was the only one who called it what it was. Being the reliable one is both a blessing and a curse. Claire, she told me once while we planted tulips. People lean on you because they know you won't let them down. But don't forget your worth isn't measured by how much you give to people who only take. She looked at me with those piercing blue eyes. That sentence carved itself into my heart. Years later, I see that she had been preparing me for the storm I now faced. She knew the family would expect me to hand over everything. She knew they would try to bury my boundaries under guilt. So when I sat in that lawyer's office and heard her will the house and the $75,000 weren't just gifts. They were her way of telling me, stand firm, Claire. You've given enough. And before I go deeper into what happened next, let me pause for a moment. Because I need to ask you something. Where are you watching from right now? Drop it in the comments below. And if you've ever been in a family where your kindness was taken for granted, hit subscribe so you don't miss the rest of this journey. Every Sunday, memory, every quilt by the fire, every sip of sweet tea was building toward this moment. Grandma knew that inheritance would not just be property, it would be proof. Proof that she saw me, that she valued me, and that she trusted me to carry her legacy. And now I was being told to erase all of that, to pretend it never happened, to trade years of devotion for the comfort of others who had given so little. What? That was the weight I carried as I stepped out of the lawyer's office into the rain. And that weight only grew heavier when my parents set the next trap Friday dinner. You know, sometimes the sharpest pain doesn't come from strangers. It comes from your own blood. That was the story of my sister Amanda and me. We were only 3 years apart, yet it felt like we lived in different universes. I had to fight for every inch of stability. She floated through life cushioned by excuses and handouts. From the outside, people might have thought we were just two sisters with different paths. But inside my family's walls, it was a rigged game. When I was grinding through nursing school, balancing classes, clinical rotations, and night shifts, Amanda was finding herself. That was her favorite line. I'm just finding myself. Finding herself meant dropping out of college 3 times each attempt funded by our parents. Finding herself meant bouncing from retail job to waitressing gig to a pyramid scheme never lasting more than a few months. Meanwhile, I drove the same Honda I bought with my own savings. I lived in a modest 1-bedroom apartment near the hospital. I worked shifts that drained every ounce of energy from my body, but I paid my bills. I showed up. I kept going. Amanda never did. And yet somehow she was always forgiven, always rescued. My parents enabled every mistake. When she couldn't make rent, they paid it. When she overspent, they bailed her out. And when she needed a new car after wrecking the last one while texting yes, they bought it for her. It didn't stop there. The double standard followed me through every milestone. She borrowed my prom dress, returned it stained, and I was told to let it go. She drained my graduation fund with promises to pay me back, and my parents told me family helps family. At my nursing school graduation, she showed up 3 hours late hungover, and I was told to be understanding. I was expected to swallow my anger, to always be the bigger person. And I did. For years I kept the peace. But each compromise cut away a little more of who I was. Grandma Eleanor saw it all. She was the only one who dared to name the truth. Claire, people will take advantage of your reliability, she told me. It's both your strength and your weakness. At the time, I didn't know how prophetic those words were, because now sitting in that lawyer's office, Amanda's outrage made sense. She had built her life on the certainty that someone, me, our parents, anyone, would fix things for her. And now the biggest fix of all the house had gone to me. In her mind, that wasn't just unfair. It was a betrayal of the script our family had always followed. For the first time, Amanda wasn't the center. For the first time, she was left with consequences. $10,000, a generous sum, wasn't enough for her. She saw my inheritance as theft of her entitlement. And maybe that's why her voice dripped with venom in that office. Maybe that's why my parents jumped to her defense without hesitation. Because to them, Amanda was the fragile one, the one who always needed saving. And I was the strong one, the one who could be pushed, pulled, and drained until there was nothing left. But here's the thing. Even the strongest rope will snap when it's pulled too tight for too long. I wonder, have you ever lived in someone else's shadow? Have you ever been told to be the bigger person so often that you forgot what it felt like to stand tall? If you have, tell me in the comments. I'd love to know your story. That's the weight I carried as Friday crept closer. My parents had called it just dinner, but I knew what it really was. It was another ambush, another attempt to force me back into my old role, the giver, the forgiver, the doormat. This time, though, something inside me had shifted. Grandma's voice still echoed in my head. Your worth isn't measured by how much you give to people who only take. And I was starting to believe her. There are moments in life that carve themselves into your memory so deeply you can never shake them. For me, it was the last year of my grandmother's life. When her health began to fail, I didn't hesitate. I filed for family medical leave from the hospital, even though it meant long nights worrying about bills. I knew where I needed to be, by her side. Each morning, I brewed her favorite tea with a slice of lemon. I organized her medications in tidy rows, making charts so she never missed a dose. I drove her to appointments, steadying her arm as we walked into sterile rooms where doctors spoke in hushed voices. At night, when pain made it impossible for her to sleep, I sat with her. Sometimes we talked, sometimes we didn't. Sometimes I simply held her hand until the tremors in her body slowed and her breathing softened. It wasn't glamorous. It was exhausting, heartbreaking work, but it was love in its purest form. She was the woman who had anchored me through every storm. Caring for her was not a burden. It was a privilege. And Amanda, she visited once, just once, 45 minutes. She scrolled through her phone the entire time, barely looking up. When she left early because she had plans, I walked her to the door, stunned at how easily she dismissed the weight of what was happening. Our parents came more often. They meant well, but their visits were short and polite, never touching the real labor of caregiving. They dropped off casseroles, hugged Grandma, and left the hard parts to me. The long nights, the messy realities, the endless cycle of worry and fatigue. I never complained, at least not out loud. But inside I knew the truth. If I didn't step up, no one else would. And Grandma knew it too. One night, as I tucked a quilt around her frail shoulders, she whispered, "Claire, you've given me more than I could ever repay." I smiled through tears. "You don't have to repay me, Grandma. This is where I want to be." She squeezed my hand with surprising strength. "Still remember what I told you. People lean on the reliable one, but you must never let that erase who you are." Those words carried me through nights when my own body ached with exhaustion. Through days when I drove home from appointments with tears blurring the road. Through moments when Amanda's absence screamed louder than any argument. Because when Grandma finally passed quietly, peacefully with my hand in hers, I knew I had done everything I could. I knew she hadn't been alone. I had been there. Not Amanda, not my parents, me. At the funeral, Amanda played her role perfectly. She cried loudly, telling anyone who would listen how close she and Granny Elle had been. I watched, numb with grief, too shattered to call her out. My parents, of course, said nothing. They let her performance stand. And part of me thought, maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe the truth is only between me and Grandma. But I was wrong. That truth mattered more than anything. Because in the weeks that followed, it became the very weapon my family tried to use against me. Looking back, I sometimes wonder how I carried it all. How I bore the double load of grief and caregiving while Amanda floated free. But the answer is simple. Love. Love fueled every action, every sleepless night, every painful goodbye. And it was that same love that gave me the strength to resist when the pressure campaign began. Because as soon as the funeral ended, the whispers started. The questions about the will, the suggestions that it would only be fair to give Amanda the house. The trap was already being set. The Tuesday of the will reading still burns in my memory. I arrived early, clutching a tissue, my heart heavy with grief. Mr. Harrington's office looked like something out of another century. Dark wood panels, leather chairs, the smell of old paper thick in the air. Rain streaked the windows as I tried to prepare myself. I wasn't nervous about what Grandma had left. I simply wanted to honor her, to hear her last words spoken aloud. My parents entered next. My father wore the one good suit he only used for weddings and funerals. My mother's black dress made her look pale and drawn. They whispered to each other in the corner, heads bent together. I knew that look. It was the look of strategy, of plans already forming. Amanda was late, of course. She swept in with her latest boyfriend, Troy, his tattooed arm draped around her shoulders like he belonged there. He had never even met Grandma yet. Here he was, ready to claim a piece of her legacy. Amanda barely greeted me. She pulled out her phone, nails clattering on the screen as if this meeting was just another inconvenience. When Mr. Harrington finally opened the folder and began reading, the formal language blurred in my ears. Jewelry to my mother, first edition books to my father, smaller bequests to cousins, and then my name. To my granddaughter Claire, who has been my constant companion and support, who has given me the gift of her time and love without expectation of return. I leave my house at 247 Maple Street with all its contents, as well as the sum of $75,000. The words wrapped around me like a blanket. Tears welled in my eyes, not for the property or money, but because Grandma had spoken my truth out loud. She had seen me. She had honored me. And then came Amanda's portion. To my granddaughter Amanda, I leave the sum of $10,000 with the hope that she will use it wisely to secure a stable future for her children. Amanda's head jerked up. Her eyes flashed. "That's it," she spat, voice rising. $10,000, are you kidding me? That house is worth hundreds of thousands. She gives me pocket change. My mother gasped, though I couldn't tell if she was more shocked by Amanda's disrespect or the smallness of her share. My father's jaw tightened. He stood abruptly. There must be some mistake, he declared. Eleanor knew Amanda has 3 children. Claire is single with a good job. This division makes no sense. Mr. Harrington removed his glasses calmly. Your mother reviewed this will multiple times. She was of sound mind and very clear about her wishes. But my father turned his stern gaze on me, his voice dropping into the tone that had cowed me since childhood. Claire, you need to do the right thing. Sign the house over to your sister. She needs it more than you. I opened my mouth, words faltering, but Amanda cut me off. Exactly. You already have an apartment. Why do you need 4 bedrooms? I've got 3 kids crammed into 2 rooms. You're being selfish. My mother joined in, her guilt-laden voice like a knife. Honey, think of Lily, Jaden, and Mason. They need a yard to play and a home to grow up in. You know your grandmother would have wanted that. The room swirled with voices, all demanding, all pressing. Troy even stood arms crossed, glaring at me like I was heartless. My aunt and cousin exchanged nervous glances, too uncomfortable to speak. The lawyer tried to regain control. This is not the place for arguments. The will is legal and binding. If you wish to contest it, you may do so in court. But my father dismissed him with a wave. We don't need courts. We're family. Claire knows what's right. Family. That word echoed inside me, twisting into something sharp. In my family, family had always meant one thing: Claire gives, Amanda takes. And now they expected me to erase the one gift my grandmother had given me. My cousin Beth finally broke the tension. It's too soon. We should give it time. We just buried Aunt Eleanor. Amanda shot her a venomous look. Easy for you to say when you're not raising 3 kids with no money. The argument boiled until Mr. Harrington cut it short, his voice firm. Enough. This discussion is over. The will stands. We filed out, but the battle had only begun. In the parking lot, rain soaked through my jacket as my mother gripped my arm. Dinner Friday, she ordered. We'll discuss the transfer then. Transfer, as if it was already decided. I watched them drive away, Amanda, laughing bitterly, Troy muttering about injustice. And I stood alone in the rain, the weight of my grandmother's words heavy in my chest. She had trusted me. But could I be strong enough to keep that trust against the storm that was coming? Before we move forward, let me pause right here. Because stories like this are not rare. Families can turn cruel when money is involved. If you're watching this, take a second to subscribe and stay with me because this story is about to get darker before it gets brighter. The days after the will reading were like being dragged under a wave that never let me breathe. My phone buzzed constantly, calls, texts, voicemails. Every message was the same theme, just delivered in different tones: guilt, anger, manipulation. My mother's morning calls became routine. She always caught me before my hospital shifts when I was vulnerable, half awake and racing the clock. Amanda cried herself to sleep last night, she whispered one morning. She's terrified about where the children will live if the landlord raises the rent again. The next day, her voice sharpened. I don't understand how you can be so selfish. After everything your father and I sacrificed for you, this is how you repay us. And then came the dagger. Your grandmother would be ashamed of you, Claire. She raised you better than this. Those words crushed me. I sat in my car outside the hospital, tears running down my face, unable to move. A coworker tapped on my window asking if I was okay. I lied and said it was allergies. My father's approach was different. He only called once, but his voice carried the authority that had ruled my childhood. This family takes care of its own, he said flatly. Your mother and I gave you girls everything. Now it's your turn to give back. Amanda needs this house. That's not a request. Amanda, meanwhile, launched her own campaign. On social media, she posted teary-eyed rants about selfish people who don't care about family. She never used my name, but everyone knew who she meant. Friends I'd grown up with filled her comments with sympathy. They only saw her curated version of events, the struggling single mother versus the cold-hearted sister clinging to a house she didn't need. The most brutal attack wasn't online. It was at my own front door. One Thursday evening, I came home exhausted from a 12-hour shift, only to find Amanda, Troy, and all 3 children waiting outside. 7-year-old Lily ran to me, hugging my waist. Aunt Claire, she cried. My heart twisted. None of this was their fault. Amanda smiled sweetly for the neighbors. We thought you might want to spend some time with the niece and nephews you're making homeless. Her voice was loud enough for everyone on the block to hear. My cheeks burned with shame, though I had done nothing wrong. Inside my tiny apartment, chaos erupted. Jaden touched everything in sight, knocking over a graduation gift vase that shattered on the floor. Mason had a diaper blowout on my couch. Amanda didn't lift a finger to clean either mess. Instead, she looked around with disdain. This place is perfect for one person, she sneered. What are you going to do with Grandma's big house, rattle around in it alone while my kids are crammed into a moldy apartment? I tried to protest, but Troy cut me off. Amanda told me how you were always the favorite, always got everything. Maybe it's time you thought about someone else for once. His words stunned me. That was the story Amanda had spun, that she was the neglected one, not me. After an hour of insults, they left. Amanda paused at the door. Dinner tomorrow night. Mom and Dad expect us all there. Don't be late. Maybe by then you'll have come to your senses. It didn't stop with them. Relatives piled on too. Aunt Susan called to check in, only to pivot into how Amanda had always struggled, and family shares blessings. Uncle Robert texted, "Do right by your sister. Blood is thicker than water." Every message tightened the noose. But then came one voice of clarity. My cousin Beth called me Friday afternoon. "How are you holding up?" she asked, her tone genuine. When I admitted the truth that I felt like a monster, she said firmly, "Claire, not all of us think you should give up the house. Grandma left it to you for a reason. Her words cracked through the fog of guilt. For the first time in days, I felt a flicker of strength. Still, as Friday night's family dinner loomed, my stomach knotted. My parents had set the table for an ambush, and I was walking straight into it. Friday evening arrived like a storm cloud. I pulled into my parents' driveway, my stomach in knots, knowing this wasn't a dinner, it was a battlefield. The moment I walked inside, I felt the tension pressing down on me. My father sat at the table papers stacked neatly before him. My mother clattered dishes in the kitchen, her jaw set tight. And then Amanda arrived late as always, children in tow. She swept in as if she owned the place, her voice loud enough to fill the house. "Kids, say hi to Aunt Claire. You might as well get used to begging her for a home." Her words stung. 7-year-old Lily ran to hug me again, innocent and bright. "Aunt Claire, are we really going to live with you? Mommy says you have lots of space." My chest tightened. The manipulation was clear. Amanda was using her children as pawns in a game of guilt. Dinner began in strained silence. My mother served pot roast, my favorite, which only made my nerves spike. She always cooked my favorite meal when she wanted something. My father finally cleared his throat. "Claire, we've been thinking. Amanda's situation is dire. You have a good job and an apartment already. It just makes sense for her to have the house." Amanda leaned forward, eyes glittering. "Yeah, exactly. I've already told Troy which bedroom could be his podcast studio. The kids will finally each have their own space." I nearly choked on my water. Podcast studio. She waved a hand casually. "Don't be dramatic. He needs somewhere quiet to record about craft beer. This house would be perfect." The room blurred with outrage. My father slid a set of papers across the table, transfer documents. "Bill at the bank helped me prepare these. We can finalize tonight." My pulse hammered. They had planned this ambush down to the signature line. My mother folded her hands, her voice dripping with irritation. "I don't know why this is even a discussion. Amanda needs it. You don't. Sign and this can all be over." Amanda shoved the pen toward me. "Come on, Claire, don't drag this out. Be reasonable for once." I stared at the papers. My name, Amanda's name, and a blank line for my signature. My throat burned with fury. "You already had these drawn up without asking me." My father's eyes narrowed. "We're asking now. Do the right thing." Something inside me cracked. Luck. You think it was luck that I spent every Sunday with Grandma for 10 years, that I took leave from work to care for her when she was dying, that I was there holding her hand when she passed while Amanda visited once. Amanda rolled her eyes. "Here we go. St. Clair always the martyr." I turned to her, voice shaking but steady. "When was the last time you visited Grandma before she got sick? Do you even remember?" Amanda faltered. "Christmas maybe 2 years ago. Why does it matter?" "It matters because you're demanding her house as if you earned it. You didn't, and she knew it." The silence afterward was suffocating. My father slammed his hand on the table. "Enough, either you sign these papers and prove your loyalty, or you are no longer welcome in this family." The ultimatum hung in the air, brutal and final. Before I continue, I need to pause. Because I know some of you watching have been in this very position, torn between your own worth and your family's demands. Tell me in the comments, have you ever been guilted into giving up something that was rightfully yours? I want to hear your story. That night, staring at those papers, I realized the truth. This wasn't about a house. It was about a lifetime of being the reasonable one, the one who always gave in. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if I could play that role anymore. The smell of pot roast still lingered in the air, but I could barely taste a thing. My parents had set the table like it was a normal family dinner, yet nothing about this evening was normal. My father's stack of papers sat between us like a loaded weapon. Amanda leaned back smugly, one hand scrolling her phone, while the other pushed the pen closer to me. My mother kept her eyes fixed on me, her silence more damning than words. "This isn't complicated, Claire." My father said, his tone clipped and final. "Sign these documents and we can put this ugliness behind us." Amanda snorted. "Yeah, let's stop pretending you deserve that house. Grandma just liked you better. You didn't earn it." Something hot surged through my chest. For years I had been quiet, the peacekeeper. Tonight their arrogance left no space for silence. "You think it was luck," I said, my voice sharper than I expected. Was it luck that I showed up every Sunday for a decade, that I cared for her when she was sick, when none of you could be bothered? Was it luck that I was there when she took her last breath holding her hand? Amanda rolled her eyes, mimicking me. Here comes the martyr speech. Always St. Clair. I slammed my palms on the table. This isn't a martyr speech. This is the truth. For the first time, Amanda's bravado faltered. She looked away, fiddling with her phone. My father, however, doubled down. Enough. This family has always taken care of each other. You either sign tonight or you walk out of this house for good. The words landed like a blade. My mother added softly, Honey, think about the children. They need a safe place more than you need some empty rooms. Her manipulation cut deeper than my father's threats. I stared at her, searching for a trace of the mother who once comforted me during long nights of study, who hugged me at my graduation. All I saw was someone willing to erase my sacrifice to protect Amanda's comfort. Amanda suddenly leaned forward, her voice hard. Troy's already planning where to put his recording equipment. The front bedroom gets the best light. Don't drag this out, Claire. Just sign. I looked at her in disbelief. A podcast studio. That's what you want to turn Grandma's home into. Don't be dramatic, she sneered. We need the space. You don't. My stomach turned. The audacity was staggering. My grandmother's legacy reduced to background noise for Troy's half-baked hobby. The pen sat inches from my hand. Every eye in the room burned into me. For a second I considered giving in, ending the fight, keeping the peace, being the good daughter once more. But then I remembered Grandma's words. Your worth isn't measured by how much you give to people who only take. A strange calm settled over me. I pushed the papers back toward my father. No. Amanda slammed her fist on the table. You selfish witch. My father's face turned crimson. Do you understand what you're doing? You're choosing a house over your family. I rose from my chair, my knees shaking, but my voice steady. No. I'm choosing to respect Grandma's wishes. I'm choosing myself. The room erupted, shouting accusations, tears, but I barely heard them. I walked to the door, my mother's voice calling after me, trembling with both fury and desperation. But I didn't look back. Sorry. Before I move on, I need to pause for those of you listening, because I know some of you have sat at a table like mine papers in front of you family, pressing in from all sides, demanding you surrender what is rightfully yours. Tell me in the comments if you were me, would you have signed or would you have walked away? I want to hear your truth. That night as I drove through the rain with tears blurring my vision, I realized something terrifying. My father's ultimatum wasn't an empty threat. I might have just lost my entire family. And yet for the first time I also felt a flicker of freedom. Driving away that night, I thought the storm had peaked. But I was wrong. What happened next pushed everything into a new level of fury, exposing truths that no one in my family wanted to face. The following evening, I found myself back in my parents' dining room. I don't even know why I agreed to come. Maybe part of me hoped they would calm down. Maybe I still believed peace was possible. But as soon as I walked in, I knew nothing had changed. The same papers waited on the table, the same pen beside them. Amanda sat with her arms crossed, a smirk playing on her lips. So, Claire, are we doing this the easy way or the hard way? I sat down, refusing to touch the documents. I already said no. My father's voice hardened. Your sister has 3 children. You're single. You don't need that house. My mother chimed in, her voice syrupy and sharp at the same time. Honey, just imagine how happy the kids will be with a yard. You know Grandma would have wanted that. Something inside me snapped. Stop twisting her memory. You don't know what Grandma wanted. You weren't there. I was. Amanda slammed her hand on the table. Oh, here we go. Poor St. Clair, always reminding us how perfect she is. Newsflash, you were not the only one who loved Grandma. My pulse pounded. Really? Then tell me, Amanda, when was the last time you actually visited her before she got sick? Her face went blank. Christmas? Maybe 2 years ago. Why does it matter? It matters because you're demanding her house as if you earned it. You didn't. And you know what else she told me about the last time you visited? About 6 months before she got sick. Do you even remember that? Amanda's eyes narrowed. I don't know what you're talking about. I leaned forward. She made lemon bars your favorite. She was so excited to see you. But you weren't there to visit, were you? You were there because you needed money. You begged her to bail you out of credit card debt. And when she offered to help on one condition, that you create a budget and stick to it, you got angry. You stormed out. You left the lemon bars untouched. She cried when she told me. The room went dead silent. My father looked at Amanda, his jaw tight. Is that true? Amanda's face flushed. She shifted in her chair, refusing to meet his eyes. She was trying to control me, treating me like a child. My voice rose, trembling with years of suppressed anger. Because you were acting like a child, you've been acting like one your entire adult life. And everyone, mom, dad, even me, has enabled it. Well, I'm done. Amanda's chair screeched back. How dare you? No, I shot back, my voice shaking with fury but steady. How dare all of you? Grandma hasn't been gone 2 weeks, and instead of honoring her wishes, you're bulldozing over them to protect Amanda from her own choices. She left me the house because she knew this would happen. She knew Amanda would waste it. She trusted me. My father stood, his face crimson. That's enough, Claire. You will not speak about your sister that way. Either you sign these papers, or you are no longer welcome in this family. The words hit me like a slap. For a moment I couldn't breathe. The ultimatum was clear: the house or my family. I looked at their faces, my father's anger, my mother's tears, Amanda's smug defiance, and something inside me crystallized. I saw my entire future if I gave in, decades of being used, of erasing myself, of bending until I broke. I stood slowly, my chair scraping the floor. Then I guess I've already lost my family, because I will not sign. The room erupted, shouts, sobs, accusations, but I walked out, each step heavier and lighter all at once. Before I move forward, let me ask you this. If your own family forced you to choose between your dignity and their approval, what would you do? Would you give in, or would you walk away? Leave your answer in the comments, because I need to know how others would face a moment like this. That night, I sat alone in my car, tears streaming down my face. For the first time, I realized the inheritance wasn't just a house, it was a test. And my grandmother had known exactly what she was doing. The fight wasn't over. In fact, the real twist was still waiting for me, hidden in the pages of an old book. I walked out of my parents' house that night with my heart hammering so loudly it drowned out the sound of the rain. My father's ultimatum still echoed in my ears. Sign these papers, or you are no longer part of this family. For 29 years, those words, this family, had defined everything about me. They had shaped the choices I made, the sacrifices I accepted, the silence I kept. But now, those very words were being used like a blade, cutting me off from the only roots I had ever known. I stumbled into the driveway, fumbling for my keys, while Amanda's voice trailed after me. Good riddance. Don't bother coming back until you learn how to care about someone besides yourself. My mother's cry followed, softer but just as sharp. Claire, please, don't do this. Think of your sister. Think of the children. But I didn't turn back. If I had, I might have broken. I drove aimlessly for hours, the windshield wipers beating like a drum. My phone lit up with messages, missed calls from Mom, texts from Dad, even Amanda flooding my screen with insults. I ignored them all. For the first time, silence was my only shield. When I finally pulled into a park near my apartment, the weight of everything collapsed on me. I sat on a bench under a flickering streetlight, the rain soaking through my coat. Tears blurred the world into shadows. For so long I had been the reliable one, the peacemaker, the one who bent until she broke. And now, I had broken. I whispered into the darkness, Grandma, I don't know if I'm strong enough for this. I don't know how long I sat there, but by the time I drove home, it was nearly midnight. My apartment felt colder than ever. I curled on the couch, fully clothed, and for the first time since Grandma's death, I slept without dreams. The next morning brought no relief. My eyes were swollen, my body heavy, but something inside me was strangely calm. My phone buzzed again. A new text from Dad glowed on the screen. When you've calmed down and are ready to be reasonable, call us. Reasonable. That word cut deeper than the ultimatum. Because in my family, reasonable had never meant fairness. It meant surrender. It meant giving Amanda what she wanted, no matter what it cost me. I sat there with my coffee, staring at the steam rising from the mug. For years, I had accepted that role without question. The strong one, the dependable one, the one who didn't complain. But now I realized something terrifying, being the reasonable one had never protected me. It had only erased me. Have you ever been told to be reasonable, when what people really mean is give up what is rightfully yours? Tell me in the comments, because I think too many of us have been trained to mistake surrender for peace. By the end of that week, the pressure campaign had only intensified. Amanda posted more online, painting herself as a victim abandoned by her cruel sister. Old friends messaged me asking how I could do this to her children. Even relatives who had stayed silent before were chiming in, urging me to think of family unity, to remember blood is thicker than water. But something inside me was shifting. The old Claire, the one who bent and caved and apologized, was fading. In her place was a new version born in fire, a version that looked at her father's ultimatum and thought, maybe losing my family is better than losing myself. And just when I thought I had reached the limit of my strength, a memory surfaced. Grandma's voice, faint but clear. I've put something away for you, Claire. When the time comes, look in our book. You'll know what to do. Our book, Pride and Prejudice. That was when I realized the fight wasn't over. The real battle hadn't even begun. The morning after my father's ultimatum, I woke with swollen eyes and a strange stillness in my chest. It wasn't peace exactly. It was more like the calm after a storm, when the air still crackles with danger. But you know something has shifted forever. I made coffee and sat in silence, staring at nothing, when her voice returned to me. My grandmother's voice. I've put something away for you, Claire. When the time comes, look in our book. You'll know what to do. The words hit me like lightning. Our book, Pride and Prejudice. I sprang from the couch and pulled her worn hardcover from my shelf. I had brought it home after she passed, unable to part with the copy we had read together countless times. My hands trembled as I flipped through its pages. At first, nothing seemed unusual, just the familiar notes she had written in the margins, her tidy script commenting on Elizabeth Bennet's wit or Mr. Darcy's stubbornness. Then I reached the chapter where Elizabeth rejects Darcy's first proposal. A slip of paper peeked from the edge. My breath caught. I pulled it free. An envelope yellowed, and fragile, my name written across it in her elegant hand. I couldn't move for a moment. My heart pounded in my throat. Finally, I opened it. Inside was a letter dated 2 weeks before she died. My dearest Claire, it began. If you are reading this, then I am gone, and you have found yourself in the very situation I feared. Her words poured across the page, cutting through every lie my family had tried to weave. She knew. She had predicted it all. That my father would demand I hand the house to Amanda, that my mother would guilt me, that Amanda would feel entitled to more than she was given. She wrote, "First know this, the house is yours, without conditions or expectations. What you choose to do with it is entirely your decision. But I hope you will listen to my last advice. Throughout your life, I have watched you sacrifice your happiness to keep others content. I have seen you give in to Amanda's demands since childhood. I have seen you accept your parents' favoritism without complaint. Your compassion is your greatest strength, but when misused, it becomes your greatest vulnerability." Tears blurred the ink as I read. She recounted the very story I had thrown in Amanda's face the day Amanda visited, demanded money, and stormed out when Grandma insisted she take responsibility. Amanda told me I owed her because I had always favored you, the letter said. She fails to understand that love is not about keeping score. It is about respect. And respect is what you gave me Sunday by Sunday, year after year. She continued, I have left Amanda what I believe is generous given our relationship. I have left you my home because you helped make it a home. But more than that, I hope I have left you the courage to stand firm. You do not exist to fix Amanda's problems. If your family cannot accept this gift freely given, then perhaps it is time to create distance. Not out of anger, but out of self-preservation. By the time I reach the end, I am proud of you. Live your life with joy and purpose. Do not let anyone take that from you. I was sobbing. These were not just words, they were permission. Permission to stop caving. Permission to value myself. Permission to finally break the chains of a lifetime of manipulation. I clutched the letter to my chest, rocking in silence. For the first time since the funeral, my grief lifted. Not entirely, but enough for me to breathe. Enough for me to know the path ahead. Because now I had proof. Not just a legal will, but her handwritten truth. A weapon against the lies my family spun. And I knew what I had to do. Before I move forward, let me leave you on this cliffhanger. What would you do if you discovered a secret letter that proved you were right all along? Would you reveal it, or would you hold it close as your private shield? Comment below. I'm curious how you would use that kind of power. The next day I texted my parents and Amanda. We need to talk. Tomorrow 2 p.m. at Grandma's house. Please be on time. For the first time in my life, I wasn't walking into an ambush. I was setting the terms. The following afternoon, I stood in front of Grandma's Victorian house with my hands trembling against the brass key. For weeks it had sat empty, the garden neglected leaves collecting on the porch. But today, it wasn't just my refuge. It was my battleground. I had invited them here, my parents, Amanda. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't walking into their trap. I had set the stage myself. I spent the morning cleaning, polishing the furniture. Grandma had loved arranging fresh flowers in her vase, making the living room glow with the warmth she always carried. I needed the space to feel like her because what I was about to do was for her and for me. At 2 o'clock sharp, my parents arrived punctual as always. My father carried himself like a man expecting victory. My mother looked determined but nervous, clutching her purse like a shield. Amanda arrived late, of course, without Troy this time. She breezed in with her usual false brightness, already expecting me to fold. We sat in the living room, the air thick with tension. I took a deep breath, steadying my voice. Thank you for coming. I know things got heated the other night, but I think it's time we settle this once and for all. My father leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. Good. Then let's end this nonsense. Sign the house over and we can move on. Amanda smirked, already picturing herself redecorating. I shook my head. No, I've made my decision. I'm keeping the house. Grandma left it to me, and I intend to honor her wishes. Amanda's jaw dropped. You selfish witch, after everything I've been through? Stop, I cut her off, my voice sharper than I thought possible. This isn't about being selfish. This is about respecting Grandma. And before you say anything else, I want you to hear her words, not mine, hers. I reached into my bag and pulled out the envelope. My hand shook slightly as I unfolded the letter, but my voice was clear as I began to read. Every word echoed in the room like thunder. How Grandma saw me as her constant companion, how she knew Amanda would demand more, how she feared my parents would pressure me to surrender, how she urged me not to let compassion become my weakness. When I finished, the silence was suffocating. My mother's eyes brimmed with tears, though her lips were pressed tight with anger. My father's jaw clenched. His certainty cracked for the first time. Amanda sat frozen, her face pale with fury. That's manipulation from beyond the grave, my mother finally whispered. I can't believe she would write such things about her own family. I swallowed hard. It's the truth, and deep down you know it. My father's voice boomed again, desperate to regain control. The truth is, Amanda needs this house more than you do. That hasn't changed. No, I said softly but firmly. What Amanda needs is to stop being rescued. What I need is to finally stop being your doormat. Grandma knew it, and now so do I. Amanda's chair screeched as she shot to her feet. Fine, keep your stupid house. Don't expect me to ever speak to you again. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. My father rose more slowly. You're making a mistake, Claire. A family divided cannot stand. I stood too, meeting his gaze. I'm not dividing the family. I'm just refusing to be the only one who sacrifices. If that makes me unwelcome, then so be it. My mother cried harder, whispering that I was cruel, that I was tearing us apart, but I didn't falter. For once, I held the line. When they finally left, the silence of the house wrapped around me. I collapsed into Grandma's old armchair, the letter still in my hand. My chest ached. My body trembled. But beneath the pain was something I hadn't felt in years. Strength. So, before I tell you what happened in the weeks that followed Amanda's spiral, my parents' silence, the unexpected turn that began to change everything, I want to hear from you. If you discovered a letter that defended your right to stand your ground, would you have read it aloud, or kept it hidden as your own secret strength? Share your thoughts in the comments. That day I lost my family, or at least the version of them I had always known. But I also gained something far greater, a voice of my own. The slam of the front door still echoed through the house long after Amanda stormed out. For a moment, no one moved. The living room felt hollow, stripped of its warmth, every eye fixed on me, like I had just detonated a bomb in the center of the family. My father finally broke the silence. His voice was sharp, clipped the same voice that had commanded me since childhood. Claire, I hope you're proud of yourself. You've torn this family apart over a house. I met his glare. My hand shook, but my voice was steady. No, I didn't tear this family apart. I just stopped letting you use me to hold it together. My mother's tears spilled down her cheeks. How can you say that? After everything your father and I have done for you, how can you turn your back on your own sister? I clenched my fists, anger boiling. Turn my back, I have spent my whole life carrying her messes, covering her debts, swallowing my own hurt so you could protect her feelings. And you dare to call this betrayal. The betrayal happened years ago every time you told me to be the bigger person, while Amanda got away with everything. The words tumbled out, years of silence unraveling in a single breath. Grandma saw it. That's why she left the house to me. She trusted me to break this cycle. And I'm going to. My father's face flushed red. As long as you live under this roof of defiance, you are no daughter of mine. A chill shot down my spine. The ultimatum was no longer veiled. It was open exile. For a flicker of a second, the old me, the reasonable one, wanted to apologize, to beg for reconciliation. But then Grandma's words rang in my mind. Compassion is your strength, but when misused, it becomes your greatest weakness. I drew a deep breath. If the price of being your daughter is erasing myself, then maybe I was never truly your daughter to begin with. The air thickened. My mother sobbed louder, clutching my father's arm as though I had struck her. My father shook his head, disappointment carved into every line of his face. You'll regret this. You're throwing away your family for bricks and wood. I stepped back, the letter still trembling in my hand. It's not about the house, it's about me. For once, I choose me. With that, I opened the door. Cold air rushed in. My parents didn't follow. They just watched me walk away, their silence louder than any scream. Out on the porch, I collapsed against the railing, my knees weak. I had said the words I thought I'd never say. I had stood up to the two people I had spent my life trying to please. And though it felt like my chest was caving in, underneath the ache was a flicker of something new. Pride. That night back at Grandma's house, I sat alone in the living room, surrounded by the remnants of her love. The quilts, the books, the faint scent of lavender polish. Tears fell freely, but they were different tears. Not just grief, not just pain, they were release. For the first time, I realized that walking away hadn't made me weaker. It had made me stronger. And I want to pause here and ask you, have you ever had to tell someone you loved, knowing it might cost you that relationship forever? Would you have had the courage to walk out, or would you have signed to keep the peace? Tell me in the comments, because this is the hardest choice I've ever faced. Amanda was gone. My parents were furious. And I was standing on the ashes of the old version of myself, the one who always caved, always smiled, always stayed quiet. That Claire was gone. What remained was someone my grandmother would finally recognize. Someone who refused to bend until she broke. Someone who had decided that her life would no longer be defined by sacrifice alone. But I didn't know then that Amanda's story wasn't finished. And neither was mine. Because sometimes the cracks in a family have to split wide open before anything real can grow again. 3 weeks passed in silence. No calls from my parents. No angry texts from Amanda. Not even one of her cryptic Facebook posts designed to paint me as the villain. At first, the quiet felt like punishment. I wandered through Grandma's house alone, the silence pressing on me like heavy air. But slowly, that silence became something else. Freedom. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't on call for my family's chaos. I didn't have to rearrange my shifts for Amanda's emergencies or answer my mother's guilt-ridden lectures. The house became mine in more than name. I painted the spare bedroom a soft sage green, unpacked my books, onto Grandma's shelves, planted fresh roses in her garden. With each change, I felt myself reclaiming space not just in the house, but in my life. Then one afternoon my phone buzzed, a single text from Amanda, "Can we talk, just us?" My heart pounded as I stared at the screen. I almost ignored it, but something in those words felt different. I agreed to meet her at a small coffee shop downtown, neutral ground. When I arrived, Amanda was already there. She looked nothing like the sister who had stormed out weeks earlier. Her usual layers of makeup were gone. Her hair was tied back in a plain ponytail. She looked tired but real. She slid a vanilla latte toward me. "I remembered it's your favorite." I sat cautiously. "What's this about?" She stared at her coffee before finally speaking. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since that night, about what you said, about Grandma's letter." Her voice cracked. "You were right." I didn't know how to respond. For so long, Amanda had lived in denial, protected by excuses and our parents' blind loyalty. Hearing her admit it felt surreal. She went on, her eyes shining. "Troy and I broke up. After the whole house thing, he kept pressuring me to fix things with you so he could move in. That's when I realized he didn't care about me. He cared about what I could get from you." She gave a bitter laugh. "Just like I've done my whole life." I blinked back tears. "Amanda," she held up a hand. "Let me finish. I finally got a job, a real one. Administrative assistant at Valley Medical. It's not glamorous, but it comes with benefits. And I applied for night classes at the community college. I'm trying, Claire. For the first time, I'm really trying." The words sank into me slowly, like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. She wasn't asking for pity. She wasn't demanding I fix her life. She was telling me she was ready to fix it herself. "I used the money Grandma left me for the apartment deposit," she added softly. "It's smaller, but it's in a better school district. The kids like it. Lily even has a little desk for her homework." For the first time in years, I saw a glimpse of the sister I had once loved without reservation. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "I'm proud of you, really." Her eyes filled with tears. "You deserved that house, Claire. I had no right to try to take it from you. I'm sorry." The words I had needed to hear for so long finally came, and I felt something inside me unclench. So, a week later, my parents reached out too. They came to see the house hesitant guarded. My father was stiff, avoiding my eyes. But my mother brought a housewarming plant and forced a smile. "You've done a beautiful job with the place. Eleanor would have loved it." For the first time, my father admitted, "We should have respected her wishes from the beginning." His voice was gruff, but it was something. We sat together awkwardly, not healed, not whole, but beginning. A new foundation. And here's what I want to ask you. If someone in your family finally admitted they were wrong after years of denial, would you forgive? Or would you protect yourself and keep your distance? Comment your thoughts. I want to hear how you'd handle that choice. So, as they left, my mother asked softly, "Maybe Sunday dinner here next week, Amanda and the kids too. A new tradition in Eleanor's home." For the first time, I didn't feel dread. I felt hope. 6 months passed, and slowly life found a new rhythm. The house that once felt like a battlefield became a sanctuary. I had painted the kitchen a soft cream, updated the old appliances, and turned the smallest bedroom into a cozy home office, where I started a blog about nursing and caregiving. Writing helped me heal, but it also connected me with people who carried similar scars, people who had chosen to set boundaries with their families, and those still struggling to do so. The garden was my refuge. I planted Grandma's favorites, roses, hydrangeas, lilacs, but also added my own touches, a vegetable patch, a meditation corner beneath the maple tree. There were mornings when I sat on the stone bench, breathing in the scent of fresh soil, and felt closer to her than I ever had since her passing. Sunday dinners slowly became tradition again, but they were different now. Sometimes at my parents' house, sometimes at Amanda's apartment, often at mine. The atmosphere wasn't perfect. Old habits slipped through. My mother still tried to guilt-trip me now and then. And my father's stubbornness didn't vanish overnight. But I was different. Each time they crossed a line, I calmly called it out. "Mom, that feels like guilt." Or, "Dad, I need you to respect my decision." The words were simple, but they changed everything. My parents began to catch themselves adjusting slowly. Amanda's transformation was even more surprising. She stuck with her job at Valley Medical, even earning a promotion to department coordinator. She completed a certificate in medical office management, and she spoke about working toward a degree. One evening, she called me crying with joy. I just paid off my first credit card. The entire balance. I've never done that before. I laughed, genuinely proud. Amanda, that's amazing. Grandma would be so proud of you. She sniffled. I wish I had listened to her when she was alive. I wasted so much time. We can't change the past, I told her gently, but you're honoring her memory now. And I meant it. For once, Amanda wasn't asking me to fix her life. She was fixing it herself. The kids began spending more time at my house. Lily helped me in the garden, her small hands digging beside mine. Jaden loved the model train set I found in the attic. Mason toddled after butterflies in the yard. I started college funds for each of them with a portion of Grandma's savings. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. There were other milestones too. I created a scholarship in Grandma's name for single parents returning to school. At the ceremony, when the first recipient, a mother of two, studying to be a dental hygienist, thanked me through tears, I felt Grandma's pride like sunlight on my shoulders. And then there was Amanda's quiet confession one Sunday after dinner. You know, Claire, you keeping the house? It saved me. If you had given in, I'd still be living the same way, expecting someone else to solve everything. You forced me to grow up. I hated you for it, but now I'm grateful. Those words broke me open. For years, I thought protecting her meant rescuing her. I never realized that real love sometimes means stepping back and letting someone stumble into strength. I want to pause here and ask you, have you ever realized that saying no was the greatest gift you could give someone you love? Because that's the lesson I carry with me now. Comment if this resonates, because I think many of us struggle to see boundaries as love. So, now when I sit on Grandma's porch swing, watching the sunset turn the sky pink and gold, I finally understand what she meant. Her last gift wasn't just the house. It was the courage to honor my own worth, to stop confusing sacrifice with love, and to build a family that thrives on respect instead of resentment. The past isn't erased, but the future feels wide open. As I sit here tonight, the crickets singing outside Grandma's windows and the house bathed in the soft glow of lamplight, I realize something powerful. This journey was never about a Victorian house, or even about money. It was about choosing myself after years of being told I wasn't allowed to. For so long, I thought love meant sacrifice giving, until I had nothing left. But now I see what Grandma had always tried to teach me: true love, whether for family or for ourselves, is not measured by how much we surrender. It's measured by respect, honesty, and the courage to draw lines where they are needed. I won't pretend everything is perfect now. My parents are still learning. Amanda still has moments where old habits creep back, and I still feel the ache of those nights when I thought I had lost them forever. But we are different, stronger, more honest. And for the first time, I am not afraid to take up space in my own life. This house stands as a reminder of that truth. Its walls hold my grandmother's love, but they also echo my voice, the voice that finally said, enough. The voice that chose dignity over guilt, boundaries over submission. If you've ever been in that place pulled between keeping peace and keeping yourself, I hope my story gives you strength. Because sometimes the greatest act of love is having the courage to honor your own worth. And as I close this chapter, I leave you with one final thought: your story is still being written. Don't hand over the pen. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay with me. There's another story waiting, one that will challenge everything you think you know about loyalty, betrayal, and the meaning of family. You won't want to miss it.